Now I knew that this Bucks team would struggle. They'd be bad without Giannis on the floor, but whew, the Bucks are down even worse than I thought that they would be right now.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, the #1 sports podcast network. I'm Camille Davis, an NBA analyst with the Locked On Network and the co-host of the Technical File podcast. Joining me is Frank Madden, longtime voice of the pod and the founder of brewhoop.com. We appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day, even after losses like this. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. On today's show, we're going to talk about if the offense or the defense has been a bigger concern thus far for this Bucks team. And we'll talk about if the Bucks have found any silver linings during this time without Giannis on the floor, because Doc Rivers promised us some silver linings during this time. But first, we got to talk a bit about this game, Frank, because the Blazers were coming into Milwaukee on the second night of a back-to-back while dealing with injuries on their side to quite a few different rotational players. And they found a way to walk out of Milwaukee with a pretty commanding win. Bucks lose 115-103 to the Blazers. The Bucks' fifth straight loss, dropping them now to 8-10. Man, this game felt competitive at the beginning and even exciting in the second quarter. Like when Bobby started cooking and he hit the three to put the Bucks up by 1, and he was hyping the crowd up and they called a timeout. That was like the peak vibes of this game, it felt like. And they could not find a way to really sustain anything after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a week ago, Camille, I forget which game it was. It was one of the non-Giannis games. And we said, we should probably, if we're going to focus on negatives, let's focus on negatives that we think are also reflective of what this team was and is going to be, with Giannis as well, because, there's obviously things that are just going to look way worse when you don't have, the best player in franchise history. But yeah, there's nobody that this team can't lose to. I think even with Giannis, there may be nobody that this team can't lose to on a given night. And obviously you take him away, and there's nobody that almost like there's nobody you'd favor them against on a given night. I mean, maybe like the Washingtons and whatever, like some of these really bad teams. But, this was as good of a scenario as you could possibly ask for in facing the Blazers, just given the ton of injuries they have. And, the second of the back-to-back, and it didn't matter, the Blazers, the Blazers shot very well from 3. So I think that's really, we've talked about it for years, really, like when Giannis is out, you really need like a 3-point shooting advantage if you're the Bucks. And certainly this version of the Bucks, desperately needs a 3-point advantage if they're going to have any chance to win games with, the way that they struggle on both ends in terms of rebounding and the fouls. If they don't have a benefit there, they're just not probably going to have a chance most nights. And, you look at it and you say, well, Bucks, what did they shoot? They weren't horrific from 3. They were 13 out of 36, slightly below average. I think they averaged 37 3-point attempts. They're, I think, shooting 41.5%. I was looking at cleaning glass. They're second in the league in 3-point percentage. And that's probably the scary part, is they're second in the league in 3-point percentage. They have the best effective field goal percentage in the NBA, and they have like a below average offense, which tells you that they do nothing other than, sometimes they shoot threes and they're good at it when they sometimes shoot threes. So, again, it was Doc Rivers tried different things tonight. Jericho Sims started alongside Miles Turner. Didn't work at all. Sims was minus 17 in 11 minutes. I don't think there was any real cards that Doc played that, seemed to work with any, kind of signal that it was something durable. And that's sort of been, I think, reflective of how they've looked, really since that, 4-1 start or so. It just seems like they are, they are a team that is defined from an identity perspective much more by what they can't do than by what they can do, if that makes sense. And I think we've talked about it, Camille, the whole thesis in the preseason about, well, we're going to play fast, we're going to shoot a lot of threes, et cetera. Well, they don't play fast. I think they're like 28th or 29th in transition offense, and they are, I think, dead at the exact same number they were a year ago in terms of the percentage of shots that they take from threes, which is, like slightly above average. So even as good as they are shooting threes, without Giannis, it just, they I think have a hard time. They really have a hard time generating threes when they don't have Giannis, sucking up attention the way that he's obviously capable of. So yeah, I mean, the offense obviously tonight was a slog, but the part that honestly, like, I mean, I kind of get, and this, I think this gets at the question, the bigger concern question. But I can tolerate like the offense not being great without Giannis.
Same.
But like, and obviously Giannis, of course, is a great defensive player. But, I mean, you look at the stats, like he's like a plus 20 on off, and it's basically all offense, right? Like they've defended no better really with Giannis versus without him. So I would hope that, given the personnel that you have, like you could maybe vaguely put up a fight. Again, maybe you'll have some defensive rebounding issues, but the concerns about rebounding and fouling, there's just no sign that they're going to solve that.
Yeah.
And I think I get the frustration with the whistle that the Bucks have gotten. I'm not going to sit here and say that they've had a good whistle by any stretch.
Have not, yeah.
But at this point, it's sort of like, but it's also like that does not explain all the Bucks' problems. I mean, like the fouling on defense in particular, I think is just reflective of the fact that they have a lot of guys who are small, weak, and honestly don't move their feet as well as they should, or have not moved their feet as well as they should. I think all these guys are having struggles keeping guys in front of them. So yeah, it just puts the defense in a compromised spot just so often. Doesn't explain maybe the bad whistle on offense, but on defense,
yeah, it's
just tough to watch. And like 5 straight losses, and it's like, yeah, I mean, Giannis is getting shout outs before the game, so hopefully he's getting close-ish. He's going to be on the road trip. No commitments made from Doc, but like
he's getting close.
Going to Orlando, going to New York, like I mean, how is this team going to win a basketball game other than just have like a double outlier shooting performance, right? Like it's just sort of hard to see it with them right now.
Yeah, it's really tough. Like going into this game with the injuries to both teams, my mentality was like, oh, we're going to get a game. Like this is going to be a good showcase of two candidates for the most improved award with, Denny Avdia and what he's been doing in Portland, and Ryan Rollins with what he's been doing. But this is probably the worst game of the season for Ryan Rollins here, and a tough one. Like you just got done playing Detroit where you're hounded by Osar Thompson the whole game, and then you come to this one and it's Tamani Kamara, who is just on your heels the entire game. And it was like dealing with the physicality of what other defenses are giving the Bucks offensively. Like when you're down Giannis, we know it's already going to be a struggle. But you're also down Kevin Porter Jr., who's one of your other few ball handlers and shot creators that you have on the team. So it's like there has been so much on Rollins' shoulder, and he's been just number one on opposing teams' scouting reports and trying to play through that. Like I think that experience is valuable. But watching the flow of the offense and all of those things, like it's just tough because there's just not enough out there on the court. And you were mentioning some things about the defense. That is the area for me personally where I'm more concerned as well. I'm more concerned about the Bucks defense than the offense because, like you mentioned, it was already slipping with Giannis in the lineup. So I want to talk a bit more about this Bucks defense, some of the concerns and things that we're seeing so far from this team. Still somewhat early in the season, but also a big enough sample size to kind of feel like, hey, we're starting to see some trends here. But first, a word from our sponsors over at Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and EFTs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at robinhood.com/your money. Again, that's robinhood.com/your money. Your money, your move. This episode is also brought to you by Drip Drop, because when I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, my energy, my mood, even my skin. And that's why I like to use Drip Drop. It's a doctor developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. And I have some crazy days covering the team, doing Locked on NBA. Sometimes we don't even start podcasting until 12:30 in the morning. So I need to make sure I'm staying hydrated, keeping myself together. And Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNBA for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard, and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. We do thank you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks that first listen every day. Thank you again for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Special shout out to the everydayers who tune in Monday through Friday, through the losses, through the wins, through the Giannis minutes, through the non-Giannis minutes. And Frank, we were mentioning defense and offense, bigger concerns. I think the trend so far has been free throws, in this game in particular, free throws, threes, and point of attack defense. The free throws and the point of attack defense have been bigger trends, where, to your point about the whistle, I don't think the Bucks get a great whistle. And the Bucks have been trying to establish themselves as a more defensive team, and they are not getting the calls of teams that are known for having defensive identities, playing physical, giving them some leeway to do what they do. But they also don't make it easy on themselves, because they have been poor at the point of attack. And when you're constantly getting beat, sometimes you're fouling out of frustration. You're putting your other teammates in scramble rotations. It's just a bit more difficult. And that, to me, has been the point where I'm like, man, that has to clean up. And it's not as if putting Giannis back in the lineup automatically fixes that, because we're looking at a lot of guards and wings and some guys that Giannis probably wouldn't be guarding in the first place. And that's why, to me, the defense is a bigger concern, because offensively, I know if Giannis is in that lineup, it's going to work. Giannis plus shooters, that works. I don't have concerns about that. But the defense, that does worry me, because the fouling has been a problem. It continues to be one. The poor point of attack defense continues to be one. And then just this 3-point discrepancy that can happen night to night for a team like the Bucks, where the margins ain't big. That's going to be tough to overcome.
Yeah, the margins, Camille, that's a great term to bring up, because I think we've talked about that the last couple of years, how the Bucks became a team that lost on the margins, right? Like, remember last year how often we talked about just like the raw shot attempts, how the other team always seemed to get more shot attempts because of differentials in rebounding and turnovers, creating just more opportunities for the other team. And I think that's, what we're seeing again this year is, other teams just hack the margins in ways that the Bucks do not. And so, when we talk about like the 4 factors, right? The 4 factors of, the oldest quote unquote analytics thing that sort of is out there, right?
Like the Bible of analytics for NBA.
Yeah, exactly. But when you talk about that, right, it's the 4 things are effective field goal percentage, turnover rate, offensive rebound percentage, and free throw rate, right? And the assumption has always been that field goal percentage like dominates that, right? Shot making, make or miss league, right? The effective field goal percentage dominates these other things. And, turnover rate, offensive rebound rate, foul, free throw rate. Those things have less of a direct impact on your offensive rating ultimately. And so, it is eye popping. I think the Bucks were 17th per cleaning the glass coming into tonight's game in offense. And it's just like, what, how are you first in the rate at which you make shots?
Yeah.
And you're 17th in the rate at which you score points, right? Like those things should be more closely correlated, right? And it was funny because I was also looking at just the half court offense stuff, half court versus transition. And I think they're second in half court points per play, which is important, okay? Because people a lot of times they oftentimes refer to the stat as half court rating. It is not half court rating, okay? It is only per play. And that's important because when you are dead last by a mile in offensive rebound rate, it means that you don't get as many plays as the other teams do. So you can be amazing in terms of, the points you get per half court play you run. But, if you have teams like the Rockets, aren't the Rockets at like a 40% offensive rebound rate or something?
Over
like
40%.
That?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Bucks are in the low 20s for the second straight year, depending on how they calculate it, right? It can be, you can see sort of different numbers. But I mean, look, the Rockets aren't 2x the Bucks offensive rebound rate, but like there is a massive gulf. And I think this is one of those areas, like I think teams swung, in the last decade, there was a period where teams swung so far to, well, we're just shooting threes and we're trying to get back on defense. And so the efficient, reasonable thing to do is to not send bodies to the glass. It's hard for the Bucks too, in the sense that like when you had Brooke Lopez spotting up, 28 feet from the basket for threes, when you have now Miles Turner spending a lot of his time spotting up around the perimeter, like those are your tallest dudes. So if they're not close to the basket, like obviously it's going to be harder for them to get offensive rebounds. But we've seen, I think, more and more teams now realize that this is an important weapon in terms of juicing your offensive efficiency. And the Bucks have gone the opposite direction and just been left in the dust. And again, it's not just like, oh, they're not that good. Like, yeah, we're not going to be good. It's okay. We're going to be not great at offensive rebounding and we're going to get back on defense. I mean, the Bucks are, like I said, the transition points added through transition, defensively, I think they were 17th or something like that coming into this game, or maybe it was even 20th, but below average, right? So you're not good. You're not good at getting back on. You're not getting back on defense as is. And if your argument is like, well, we're not going for offensive rebounds because we got to get back on defense, like, guess what? You suck at both. So, I kind of want to be like, and especially in these games where it's like you trot out Jericho Sims at power forward, or we saw Bobby Portis start a game power forward. Like, if those guys are out there, like Jericho Sims, he's not out there because he's really good at dribble handoffs, right? Like you may try to throw him a lob 2 or 3 times a game, but like,
and they sure did tonight without any success.
The only way that you're going to get any value, I think, from him is by having him try to crash the offensive boards a little bit. And so I think that's one of those things. Like, if you ask me, like, well, Frank, like, you can say the Bucks suck and are hopeless and blah blah blah. Like, great, good job. But like, what do you do about it? Right. I think honestly, like, I think they have to look at, can they do a little bit more in terms of creating second chance opportunities? I think there are certain guys that, like, Sims does try to stick his nose in there, but like a lot of times he's going like 1-on-3. I think the thing that we saw late in I think it was Bud's last year, they consciously tried to offensive rebound a bit more. And, one of the things they did was, rather than saying, oh, have your big guy just crash the boards, they would a lot of times have like their corner 3-point shooter run to the middle of the paint and try to like do those back taps. Like I think of like Grayson Allen just like jumping into the fray, and like he wasn't getting a lot of like offensive rebounds. He wasn't like tipping the ball in ever, but he was doing those back tip outs. And, that's how Brooke Lopez got his offensive rebounds. He would just bat the ball back to try to get a reload. So I think, again, like they have to figure out, like, how do you do something to try to, hack the margins a little bit, because you already are shooting at a league leading rate from 3-point land. So what can you do? Well, you can shoot more threes, right? Which I think we would generally support. How do you run more 2-man actions with AJ Green? Can you run AJ off of more screens? He had a quiet night tonight after playing well in the prior game. And that's, I think, kind of like reflective of generally like pretty much all the guys that you have past Giannis is you just don't have guys that really what you're going to get night to night. Rollins has been one of the few guys, obviously, that has been generally pretty productive night to night. Tonight, unfortunately, as you said, he's now getting like the all-world defensive matchups with Asar, again, the Pistons game, and then he gets to Kamara tonight. I mean, kind of hard to get two tougher dudes back to back in terms of just like big physical defenders that can really challenge you. So, I mean, I think it's trial by fire. I think it's good for him. I was impressed with what he did in the Detroit game, bouncing back and figuring out a way to like put up numbers, even if it wasn't his best or most efficient game. Tonight, it just unfortunately never kind of came together. But yeah, I think offensive rebounding they have to look at. I mean, honestly, some of the turnover stuff, I mean, just some of the stuff they do is just like dumb, but I don't know that, there's like a be less dumb strategy that, is necessarily like really easy for me to say, harder to actually pull off. And I think the hardest part offensive, I think, is the free throw rate, because they don't have guys that really draw fouls now that when Giannis is out and now that Dame is gone. So like how you just tell guys like, well, draw more fouls. It's like, yeah, it's kind of easier said than done. Again, like I hesitate to sit here and say like, oh, well, just when KPJ comes back, everything's gonna be solved, right?
Yeah, that's what I don't want to do. Yeah.
I think you're right. They need him, especially with how Cole Anthony has really kind of like been, well, more bust than boom lately. He
had a good game tonight.
He had a good game tonight. Yeah, he actually gave them some good minutes when they did not have a lot of offense, especially from Rollins. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's no easy answers here. And I think a lot of it kind of probably even more defensively, a lot of it just comes down to the roster construction really left them with a lack of certifiable depth at the 3 spot. And then, Taurean Prince, who everybody, crapped on his resigning, like actually they really
could use him right now.
They could really use Taurean Prince, and suddenly like Kyle Kuzma is your only 3 that has any size. And, we came into the season all agreeing like, yeah, he's not a 3, he's actually a 4,
4.
And now we're kind of sitting here saying like, who's the Bucks' best point of attack defender? It's like Kuz at times. I don't
to think about.
I don't know if anybody has been a better point of attack defender than Kuz on this team. Which takes, I don't get any pleasure in saying that. And yeah, I mean, we're kind of just these last 2 games, we've seen Andre Jackson kind of get reinserted to get some opportunities. And I'm just like kind of exhausted, because on the one hand, like I'm fine. Like I don't blame Doc, especially with Giannis out. It's not like you're worried about the spacing without Giannis. I get it. Like you need to spark something defensively, have somebody out there who takes some pride and has like some ability to keep people in front of them. But I also kind of like then get this, nagging feeling that, Andre is like an elite backcourt defender. And then once the ball is in the front court, he's actually not that good a defender. Like he's not really a great help defender, even though it seems like he would be. And he can move his feet pretty well, but he still commits a lot of fouls.
A lot of body sometimes.
Yeah. So it's just they're just in a tough spot. They're kind of grasping. And, I guess I'm just like wary of sitting here saying like, well, it's like clearly they can just become good through Andre freaking Jackson Jr. Like, like, man, we gotta be careful, like calibrating who can do what. And unfortunately, the only thing that can make this team respectable is Giannis. And, I get that they're playing the long game, but even when Giannis is back, like what does respectable mean, right? Like you look at the standings, they're not in the play-in, Camille.
Yeah, starting to fall.
It's because they're not even in the play-in. They're out
in the East right now, right?
Yeah, and it's like you look at it, and Camille, I was looking at the standings now, just like, is there a better chance that they finish 11th than 6th? Like, it's not a pleasant thing to think about, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, some of these teams have to get hurt, but it's like, if Giannis gets another injury and is out a month, then then it's like, then we're in tankathon. Then we're sitting here very happy that the Pelicans are the Pelicans because the Bucks at least should keep their own pick. But that's not a world that, I think any of us really want to think a whole lot about.
nor the world we expected to be in coming into this season with how this team was constructed. I still think this team has some better days ahead of it. Of course, that's a lot of it dependent upon Giannis' health.
You want to go on a limb there?
Like, better days are coming. They're coming. They're coming. I mentioned that Doc Rivers mentioned that there was going to be some silver linings during this time. We're going to try to flush them out that next segment. We're going to see what we
flush. They are getting flushed, I think, Camille. I think that's probably a good verb.
But first, let's talk about game time because the basketball season is heating up. Yeah, maybe not as much in Milwaukee right now, but it will when Giannis is back, and nothing is going to beat being in the arena for the games as competition continues to ramp up. So we got to be real, right? Because getting tickets can be a headache. You got to wait in queues sometimes, the surprise fees that happen, prices be jumping up right before you check out. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. And that's where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love a good deal, and Game Time has plenty of them for me. You can even find NBA tickets for under $25. Plus, I love that prices that you see on Game Time are the prices you pay. No hidden fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Silver linings. We're here. It's the holiday season, Frank. We're trying to get into the spirit. The silver linings. No, Doc, he did mention, I think after the Cavs game, when Giannis got hurt, he said that he thought a silver lining of this upcoming stretch of games that we're now in the middle of without Giannis is that the Bucks would find somebody or find something to run that'll pay dividends later on for the team. We've kind of kicked around a few loose ideas of what might constitute as a silver lining. But is there any silver lining that you can actually point to from the stretch of games? Because when I was thinking through this and putting on my big optimist hat that I love to wear, I was searching. But what I did kind of look to the point that you mentioned, like, do we need to just hit the Andre Jackson Jr. button a little bit? Like, I feel like that's been during this stretch. The one thing I can point to outside of like, hey, a silver lining, I will say this, Andre Jackson aside, I think Ryan Rollins being put in these situations, even if they don't all come out to be favorable with the box score numbers, are going to be beneficial to his development. I will say that non-facetiously, but I wonder if Andre Jackson Jr. is going to end up being that guy who ends up getting the used to be coffee minutes, kind of Gary Harris minutes, where it's not a bunch of minutes, but it's 8 to 10 minutes to kind of see what the flow might feel like, just to give you another option on the wing, because he has shown some growth offensively. I saw a little bit with the playmaking, a little bit quicker with decision making. Teams are still leaving him open to do whatever he wants to do, but he has been more decisive in his bit of playing time on the floor. So those are two things I can point to off the top of my head. Frank, what silver linings have you found over the last week or so of Bucks games?
I mean, it's Rollins to me. You know, I have a hard time really thinking of anything else. I mean, Kuzma not being abysmal.
Honestly, yeah, he's flashing.
Like, I mean, unfortunately, he hasn't been able to shoot threes at all this year. He came into this game 27%, but he's shooting a career high from the field. He's almost 50% from the field. And, you know, like relative to, I think, how low expectations were, you know, I don't think you can look at what Kuzma's done and be like, oh, well, the problem is Kuzma continues to like be bad or something like that, you know. And as I said too, I mean, like you still get, you know, the full Kuzma experience from time to time, right? Like the 29 points against Charlotte and the 1 point the next night. And, you know, some of the decision making at times is obviously going to be adventurous, but like he's been totally fine. And so I think, yeah, I mean, to me, it's like of this season in general, right? A non-Giannis category, what's something good that's happened? I think, it's Rollins, and I don't really think there's anything else that even kind of jumps out. Like, I think everybody else has been kind of like okay to disappointing on the aggregate. And obviously, like, KPJ being out, like, has been way more impactful than, we would have wanted it to be. So yeah. And I don't, like what the Rollins breakout sort of means. Like, I think obviously, like, we'd all hope that there's some sort of, long-term cosmic sort of change to the trajectory of the Bucks because of how good he's looked and what that could mean for the future. But, the flip side is like, man, it's kind of like Rollins has been so, like, can you imagine hearing that Rollins would be this good and Giannis would be as good as he is, and that the Bucks would like just still be, 8-10 and uncompetitive when Giannis isn't on the floor? Like, I mean, maybe it's not shocking. Like, I said before the year, I don't think Doc is like the worst coach in the NBA, but like, I just don't think nothing we've seen suggests that he's going to like come close to maximizing any team or get the most out of them. And I think that's, again, kind of where we are, right? It's like, this is a team that has flaws, and, for all the head coaching experience on that bench, and nobody seems to have, any answer. And so, I mean, maybe part of it is like, well, they're not as good as, John Horst and everybody wanted to think they were. But, I mean, it's like Miles Turner, I think Miles Turner certainly hasn't been as good as, we'd want him to be. I think you can see like he's still the same guy. But like, his shots inside the arc are way down. And even in these games without Giannis, right? Like, you don't really know how much he's how much of a part of things he's going to be. And they haven't really figured out how to make him more a part of those things. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think there's silver lining. There's more meat on the Miles Turner bone to be had, Camille, on offense. But, again, it's just kind of like watching this game, the Detroit game, like this game in particular, like the body language started to get pretty bad.
Yeah,
like,
you could tell they were getting really frustrated and upset.
Frustrated, or at times just honestly, like some of the guys just seemed almost like indifferent to like, kind of like, we're just getting the crap kicked out of us. And I think that's probably like that's a bigger concern, honestly, than frustration, when it's just sort of like, well, this is just what happens to us, a lot when Giannis isn't around. So yeah, I mean, good time for that Wolverine healing factor to kick in, because the other thing too is like, not to depress the people that have stayed with us the longest any further, but they've played 18 games, 11 of them, those have been at home. So like, not only are they mediocre, they have not taken advantage of a home heavy schedule, 5-6 at home. Like, this is how you end up in the play-in. This is how you put yourself in a spot where it's like you need other teams to screw up just to make the play-in. So it's just a big missed opportunity here. And you can tick back through some of those losses, whether it was, the Philly loss without Giannis, but you had a great chance to win that game in regulation, or, games with Giannis, right? Like the one that the Kings game just jumps out at me, right? It's like, you're a team that lost to the Kings. What does that say about you? Not good things.
No.
Doc Rivers and company.
But a silver lining also might be that everyone is seeing how this team looks without Giannis. If Giannis comes back and this team finds a way to go on a run, add that to the MVP. Okay, add it to the MVP case, Frank. Add it to the MVP case. But as we wrap, I do want to just make mention of the fact, something that you brought up, with that Giannis would be traveling with the team on this road trip. Doc did mention that he thought both guys were getting close, but he does not expect either to play in Miami, and probably not against New York. The broadcast mentioned that both Kevin Porter Jr. and Giannis were doing a bit during pregame warmup, so they are getting close. Now, we've heard getting close used by Doc Rivers before in many ways, and sometimes close was not close at all, and sometimes close was, it actually was close. So just keep an eye on that. But it does seem as if KPJ and Giannis should be back soon. Hopefully, as the calendar flips into December, you start seeing them within that first week or so would be my guess. But we'll wrap there. And thank you all again for making Locked On Bucks your first listen. For that second listen, go and check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball with Josh Lloyd. He got all of the stats and all of the tricks and the details that help you win your league. So make sure you check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball wherever it is that you get your podcast and on YouTube. We appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Bucks. For Frank and myself, we'll catch you later.